with other members and prospective members, just to let you know.
Sounds good.
Hey, Mo.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How you been?
I can't complain. I'm still here, still kicking.
Hey,
What
Juan.
about
Hi,
you?
Genevieve.
Your family
sorry.
well?
Everybody's good. Thank you.
Thank God.
Is that Miles?
It is.
Yeah.
Hard to see me, right?
Yeah. Okay, Miles, thank you very much. So the plan, just briefly, I greet
what?
everybody. There you go.
You can see I'm actually here.
Yeah. So I'll greet everybody, just thank them, and then I'll pass it over to you to introduce our guest, and then afterwards, if you can moderate a brief discussion, and we'll close it whenever you think it's appropriate.
So, Juan, I have a hard stop at 5, so probably around 4:56 or something like that. I'll probably cut out.
I was thinking to keep it short, so maybe just
Perfect.
45 minutes or so. Mm-hmm.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
So Miles, are you driving your boat? Are you flying your plane? Or are you in a vehicle? I can't tell.
I'm on the edge of space.
You're in your space capsule. I should have known you were going to beat me there.
No, in my car going to a meeting.
Well, that's good. At least you're driving to a meeting. That's a good sign.
It sure is a good sign. It's good to have something to do.
Can you hear us, Mario?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I want to be where you are. That San Francisco?
Yeah, well, no, that's my background.
I know.
Just to remind me of home. That's where I'm originally from.
You left your heart there, right? As the song
That's
says.
it. Yeah, Tony Bennett.
Oh, yeah.
Good call.
So it's David Hausman, V. Blanco. If you can just say hello and identify yourselves, that'd be wonderful.
Hi, David Hausman. I work with Newmark, recent transplant from San Francisco to Fort Lauderdale, and very excited to be engaged with the team.
Thank you very much, David. You're very welcome.
Hi, Deborah Blanco. I'm with AVISPL. I work with.
Okay, and then perfect. So let me send that to the
Glad
commissioner
to
as well,
have
so
her as
he
my
has
boss.
it, and we should be good to go.
Wonderful.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, bye.
Oh, someone, yeah. So, sorry. Go again.
Oh, sorry, Deborah Blanco with AVISPL, and this is my first CoreNet meeting, and I work for Genevieve.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Deborah. You're welcome to the group.
So, David, you've traded in possible earthquakes for hurricanes, then. So you're facing your first tropical storm this weekend.
We are. We're trying to get ready. I don't know if you guys are, but we're we're prepared. So.
This one's child's play. So this one should be a good teething you know.
Primer.
Exercise, right, John?
Yeah. This is just a little warm up. This is a little tropical storm. We can get these kinds of winds every day of the week.
So I see we have hey Wilson, how are you? And
Hello.
I understand Russell is already on the line.
I am here. How's everyone? Thanks for having me.
Hey Ken, how are you? Thank you.
Good.
Thank you for joining us. So just to let you know, Ken, we're going to be recording these, if you don't mind, because, well, we all have so many webinars and video conference that for some people is difficult, but I think it's really relevant information that you're going to be sharing with us, and we thank you very much for joining us. I think we can kick it off already. My name is Juan Gallardo. I'm the current president for the Southeast Florida chapter, and have the pleasure of teaming up with a wonderful board. We have John Labus, our vice president with Cisco. We have Wilson Martini, our president for events with Diageo, as you can clearly see there. We have Mario Nikama with Oracle. He's our director of education. We have Miles Glasscock, our treasurer. We have Genevieve Janelle leading our women leadership efforts, and Francisco Cereda with DHL leading the Young Leaders Organization. We even have a colleague from Chile, Ignacio Rasur is there. We have Maureen Olson with Noel, and David and Deborah that are joining us for the first time. More people may be joining us as we go, but I'll pass it over to Francisco to properly introduce you, Ken, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, sure.
Miles, if you, I'm sorry, Francisco, I meant Miles.
Oh, yeah,
Miles,
okay.
yeah.
I was really hoping to hear Francisco's introduction. So
yeah, that was going to be complicated. My bad.
Francisco, I'll help you out. So first of all, Ken Russell, Commissioner Ken Russell, thank you very, very much for making time to join us. We greatly appreciate it. Also, before I give your introduction and your background, I'd like to also thank Daniel Pratt from your office, who was instrumental in making sure that we could secure this time with you. So thank you both very much. So as a way to introduce Commissioner Ken Russell, I'd like to give a little bit about his history, a little bit about what he's done for the city of Miami, and a couple of things that really make him a unique individual. So he's a native of Miami, went to high school in Miami, attended university outside the state, but then came back and has spent his adult life here in Miami with some stops in some other countries. Ken is a small businessman with an international profile. So he's lived in Asia. He's married to a woman from Brazil. And so that's what rounds him out as more of a classic Miamian who is influenced by people from around the world. Entered politics in 2015 with a real optimistic view to change things. And what really helped Ken get into politics wasn't because he was born to be a politician. There was an issue that was affecting him, and he took it personally and really decided that someone needed to stand up for the citizens of this city. And that incident was one where the park where his children would play was full of contaminated earth. And that park was really unusable. And it was really dangerous to the population. And he took it as a real challenge to go after getting that change and getting that unfortunate situation righted. And that's really what got him into politics. And I can happily say that park today is gainfully being used by many residents of the city of Miami and completely, clean of all the pollutants that were in there. He has been focused on big issues like cleaning up that park, but the big issues that he focuses on is affordable housing, sea level rise, which, as we all know, is the issue of the decade, the 20s decade, transit. He's been focused on passing very important legislation like the Miami Forever Bond, which is going to invest $400 million into different housing projects, parks, street, flood mitigation, all throughout the city of Miami. And he's also been focused on helping out every resident of the city of Miami by going for inclusionary housing policies, building the city's public bay walks, expanding trolley routes, so making public transportation more accessible and more affordable, adding bike lanes in order to improve the mobility of the citizens in Miami. So that's a little bit about what Ken Russell's all about and what really brought him to serving the public and, being focused on the greater good. But the one thing that I find makes him probably one of the most unique people to ever meet, he was a professional yo-yo-er, if that's an actual correct term, but pretty fascinating. He traveled the world, and that's how he got exposed to traveling the world, by being this professional yo-yo person. So anyways, with no much more words, Ken, welcome, and we really appreciate you being with us.
Thank you for having me. That was an amazing introduction. I have to bring you around with me to all my Zooms. The appropriate term is a yo-yoist. It's an instrument. It's not a toy. It's an instrument. I'm kidding. We've been called many.
Duly noted. I will make sure to update the intro.
No, but pretty much everything I need to know in politics, I learned while playing yo-yo. And so it had to do with, public speaking, and I was selling yo-yos actually. So that was a whole thing. So yeah, I ended up selling about 20 million yo-yos over about a 5-6 year period in about 40 different countries. So that was where I came from. And I always enjoyed puzzle solving for my own business growth. When I stumbled into politics at the age of 45 or whatever it was when I started here, I kind of took that same approach, and I've really enjoyed it. I never thought it would be for me, and I never thought I'd like it, but I really enjoy the problem solving of getting the community together and passing legislation, creating policy, and finding our direction. And there's never been more of a time where local government has been at the forefront than in the crises that are facing the country right now. There is so much partisan divide at the federal and state level of politics that we can't even agree on science or health. And it's driving people to camps that are, these divisions are really affecting our ability to make good policy to affect this virus in a way that we need to as a community, and the way we need to recover economically. We're already recognizing that the beyond the physical killer we've got here, the economy is going to linger behind this virus. And really, there is such a patchwork response going on right now, up and down that entire spectrum of government, that there is no flow of policy to contain the virus and then address the financial impacts that are caused by those policies. It seems to me so simple to create that flow chart, that in order to stop the spread, we need to do X, Y, Z with the economy. In order to shore up the economy and those put out of jobs, we need to do ABC to make sure they survive this gap. And those two worlds aren't meeting. And so we're getting a tug of war where, because there is no safety net on the financial repercussions, we're being held back on the health decisions that could be the right move to make. And so there is a very timid hand of the government to go back into a lockdown or a shutdown situation now, because based on the first lockdown and shutdown, there has clearly been no unified response economically, and it's really shown the weaknesses in our state unemployment system. So the pressure is on us to stay open, which, if from a health perspective, if we can survive it, that's great. We would love that, and we'd prefer that. So you can rest assured that everyone in the government is doing everything they can to keep from shutting down if necessary. But the real metric that we're studying this point is the hospital capacity. The testing numbers are less important to us if we know that the hospitals can handle the testing numbers that we're getting. And so if the communication of spread is happening, but nobody is dying for lack of access to medicine, a bed, a ventilator, then we're less apt to shut down the economy based on those numbers, even if they do seem relatively high to where they were a few months ago. If the hospitals can handle it, we're gonna take on the types of enforcement to make sure that the businesses that are open are following the right protocols, and the residents and customers that they have are doing the same. And that's been the guidance we've received from the hospital system. You don't need to shut down the economy right now if you enforce the policies that have been put in place. And so that gave us some guidance as a city and on where we need to go from here. And so you'll have seen in the last week even a real step up in the enforcement procedures on mask wearing, social distancing, and all of the protocol restaurants have to follow. Restaurants who are not following those protocols are getting shut down, are getting notices, are getting citations. And we're really just trying to sort of put the fear of God in them so that we're setting examples early so that they just follow procedure on making sure their customers and their staff are safe. And it's working. It's unfortunate because you see a business just coming out of these closures, rehiring all their folks, and then they make some silly infractions that put people at risk, and they have to get closed. And so we're really using an education campaign to try to keep that from happening. But examples have been made of certain businesses and restaurants, and the message is being sent that we're not messing around. We really have to do that tough love now to keep from closing down the entire economy, because we're starting to recognize where some of these vectors are of spread. Unfortunately, we don't have a good pinpoint on the vectors because the tracing is so inadequate at this point to let us know if someone's getting affected, where they got it. And even with traditional tracing, it's most effective at the cluster stage when a virus is, coalescing within a certain group, a nursing home or gyms or something like that. Once you get past cluster spread into community spread, it's much harder to read the tea leaves of good tracing, even if you had that good tracing. And so it makes it more difficult to make fine-pointed policy on what needs to be reined in or closed down or restricted more. But we are doing tracing. The county's doing the tracing. The state's providing them the resources to do it. And so the data that does come about, we will use it if it helps us see what any spike or vector is, if it's specific to retail or restaurant or gyms or churches or whatever it may be. That being said, the mask ordinance that was passed allows us to give citations to people who do not follow protocol on wearing masks. And this has been somewhat controversial for some, very welcome and accepted for others. But it's been tested in other markets and courts, and we do have the ability to enforce or to enact these types of ordinances for the greater safety of the community. So there is a fine right now in the city of Miami and Miami-Dade County. First offense is $100, which can be bypassed through community service. But our police officers aren't just going up to someone and throwing a citation. They're first walking up to them saying, hey, have you got a mask? Please put it on. And if the person is resistant to that, if they say for whatever reason they don't want to or they're not doing it, that's when they get the citation. We're not looking at it in any means as a moneymaker or a way to bother citizens. In fact, our police officers are the highest number of infected employees in the city of Miami. So we're not trying to get them walking up to people as much as possible. So restaurant and business closures, some have happened, but it's waning off now as they're getting the message. And we're just holding tight to see if the policies that have been put in place over this last 2 weeks have a good effect on the current trajectory of those hospital numbers. Because we are as a hospital community, we do have the bed capacity, we do have the ventilator capacity, we have the nurse capacity, but it is dwindling. Every week it's getting less to where the hospitals are saying, all right, we have about a 3-week cushion right now that we can handle what's coming in and the increases even that are coming in as long as it doesn't get worse. And that's why they're leaning on us for enforcement rather than shutdown. If we do get to that precipice where they start running out of capacity, our secret ace up the sleeve is the field hospital that we have ready to open up at the Miami Beach Convention Center, which will instantly add tremendous capacity to that hospital system. So it isn't as though the sky is falling, even though the numbers are very high right now and the hospital numbers are dwindling. We have a relief valve. And so we don't anticipate closing down the economy in the next week or two by any means. Something which is very drastic would have to go very much in the worst direction for us to be looking at that. We will the first time, and we'll do it again, but I'm going to continue to advocate to the state and federal government to get their act together on the funding of businesses and folks who've lost their jobs so that we can make these policies and do them as necessary. The last thing I'll leave you with is the state of the city of Miami itself. If you think of the largest businesses in the area that are receiving relief and aid to help them keep their employees in play, that has not been offered to municipalities. And so in the state of Florida, municipalities are in corporations just like any company. And in the city of Miami, we have 4,000 employees. Since the outbreak of COVID, the city of Miami has already realized $20 million in losses. That's not even counting projected losses toward the future, and all depending on what happens to the real estate market, where well over half of our revenue is generated from real estate taxes. So if the real estate values drop significantly and collections drop significantly, we'll be having a major hit, the likes of which go back to the 08-09 crisis, where the city of Miami were cutting employees, cutting pensions, and getting in lawsuits with our own staff, but worst of all, reducing services to the community at a time when they're going to need it the most. So we're really seeking to be shored up in the next federal aid package as a municipality, and hoping that they come to the aid of municipalities throughout the country, because we want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And if we start having to lay off employees and we don't go under as a city, but start having to, whether it's raise taxes or whatever, none of the economy or the residents or the businesses need any of that right now. So we're hoping that the federal government has foresight to add a municipal stabilization to their next aid package. So schools are the last thing I'll touch on. They're not under the purview of the city government, but we watch it very closely when we work with the school board. The decision was brought about just last night and this morning that schools will not be opening in person at first, and they'll be opening a little bit later. And so that's the public school system. The orientation for students and parents is August 24th. The start date is August 31st. And then on September 30th, the school district will do another assessment of whether or not they're ready to do either a hybrid model or an in-person schools. But I can tell you one thing, our school superintendent is not, he is very much prioritizing health over getting the school open fast. As difficult as it was for all of us who have kids doing the whole Zoom parenting, he does not want to put his school staff, teachers, janitors, principals, administration at risk. And most assuredly, he does not want to put kids at risk to take a virus home to their families and become a super spreader location and a massive vector for the virus to resurge. So I'm very confident with our school superintendent, and I support him in these decisions that he's made up to now, even though I have 3 kids who I'll be dealing with and have been dealing with in their last school semester. So that's pretty much where we are right now, and I'm glad to answer any questions that any of you have with regard to the government response and to both health and economy and where we go from here. So thanks for having me, and thanks for keeping together as a think tank and welcoming any suggestions that you all have as well.
Well, Ken, thank you. That was a great overview of Miami, what's going on with COVID-19 and the city of Miami's response. I guess with the new news that you just mentioned about the school district going online starting out, and knowing that many of the employees in corporations are either single parents or dual working parents. How does the city envision helping, or what assistance may be available to those working families who honestly can't quite stay home and be those Zoom parents because either their job has to be in person, or the amount of work that they have to do and concentration that they have doesn't allow them to, let's say, multitask, if you will?
Yeah, those residents are already at the most vulnerable end of the spectrum, especially working single parents. And a lot of them have been put out of work, actually, that work in either the service sector, the hospitality, restaurant, retail. And so they are seeing a very difficult time right now. The best that we've been able to come up with is financial aid for those who are out of a job, who have kids, who have food scarcity, but how they actually educate their kids. The school board has been very, very, very proactive on making sure that the resources available to that lowest rung of the ladder, if you will, knowing that internet access and iPad access, they gave out over 30,000 iPads in that last semester. The Miami-Dade County School Board did, to make sure everyone had access to get onto their classes. And in the end, the responses we saw were significantly positive. There definitely was a lag on homes in lower economic situations, and definitely in homes, just a moment, please. In homes where there are kids with disabilities, it was much harder for the Zoom learning to be as effective. But the school board is taking that on, and they are making sure that everyone has the resources they need. But there is no daycare system or school, like even camps were closed down in the end, the public, because just having the kids together, in a way, it's just so hard to monitor their interactions from a health perspective to keep them from transmitting to each other, especially if they're asymptomatic. So yeah, there is no easy solution there, but that's within the school board's purview. And if the city can step up and help them from a financial or logistic perspective, we're there, but we haven't had any ask from them as of yet.
Great. We on that people have, and they're sending them via chat. And unfortunately, I'm not able to see the chat. So what I'd like to do is just open it up. And I saw Elizabeth, I saw Maureen had some questions. So if you wouldn't mind unmuting your phones and asking Commissioner Russell the questions directly, I'd greatly appreciate it.
So this may be out of your wheelhouse, and thank you very much for your updates. It's greatly appreciated. You have a very easy, calming way of sharing the news, good and bad. Any word on how the progress is going, University of Miami research for the vaccines that has been spoken about?
Yeah, I have not heard. Obviously, that's going to be our true safety valve. Once that vaccine is brought about, it can change everything for us. So no, I don't have an update on that, but I'm glad to get one. And Danny can relay that back to your group from my office, from the headmaster, Julio Frank. We can find out where they are in that and how it's going. But no, I'm sorry, I don't have that. I see the other questions here in the chat as well. If I could, I see Elizabeth is asking, how is the city of Miami addressing extremely low response to the U.S. Census? That is true. What type of outreach will they be doing to help the census takers? So yeah, the education campaigns, I wasn't in government the last time census was taken, but I'm realizing it's like pulling teeth to get people to respond. I just continue with a mantra to folks every time I'm in an HOA or talking to a group of people, the importance of this, it goes far beyond your own household. The city of Miami is at 480,000 residents since the last census. I would guarantee over the last 10 years, we've surpassed 500,000 at this point. And when you surpass 500,000, you get considered what's called a mega city, which gives you the ability to have direct interaction with the federal government instead of having to go through your local county or state. And that means we'll have much more direct access for, say, homeless resources, instead of being beholden to the Miami-Dade County Homeless Trust, which manages over a $50 million budget that we don't have access to. Even though the majority of homeless are in the city of Miami, we might have a more direct line of communication with the federal government on things like that. Same thing with affordable housing, same thing with resilience. So I'm really trying to get our census numbers up past that 500,000, and I know we're there if we all respond. The other thing is just making sure we have appropriate representation. Based on that census, we may get granted an additional congressional seat here in South Florida, which is very important for us. It gives us another seat at the table in the federal government as we vote on things for sea level rise, the environment, these sorts of things. We need more South Florida votes, whether they're conservative or liberal. Everyone in South Florida is behind these environmental issues, and they have the backing of their voters to be that way. So the more seats we have, no matter what party they are, it's going to help us in the long run on a lot of those issues. So that's another reason. And then, of course, the financial reason. It's estimated that for every household that returns their census, we get an additional $1,500, you know, as local governments. And so these are all reasons that we beg people, please return the census. But you know, beyond the door-to-door has been difficult in this climate, but beyond that, we're doing education campaigns. We're spending money on advertising for the census. And beyond that, there's just really not much more we can do. So if you haven't done it yet, please do. And if you have friends, bring it up in topics of conversation. People really don't realize that it's going on or the importance of it and the deadline. So yeah. And then the last question, while the Miami Beach Convention Center can provide additional beds, how will that temporary expansion of the facility be staffed? So that's where we're leaning on the state government, and DeSantis has come through for us on actual staffing for our capacity needs. So we don't envision any problem there at this point. There are staffing concerns, as much of the staff has contracted the disease or actually gone into quarantine themselves. But we do have another relief valve there, to our understanding, that if the capacity is needed, that the state can call in the troops on nurses and doctors, and that's worked out in other markets, and they've already made that available to us as we need it. So we're not too worried there.
Ken,
oh, sorry, go ahead, Juan.
No, thank you, Miles. No, first of all, I'm so happy that you left Georgia East and became a politician. You're really good. Congrats on that, and thanks for sharing. My question was twofold. So on the one hand, we have been seeing social unrest in some other cities, and that would truly affect business. And we're all in the commercial real estate business of representing companies. So was wondering if the city has any concerns regarding social unrest. And the other leg of the question was, you spoke about real estate, but I'm also assuming that hospitality, at the very least, is hardly beaten. Could you comment on those two things?
Sure. I'll start with the policing. So our police chief, George Colina, this is the City of Miami police chief, not Miami-Dade County, which is a different entity and that handles the unincorporated areas. If you're in the City of Miami, you're in the white, you see the white and blue cars and the black uniformed officers. That's City of Miami Police. I've been incredibly impressed with our police chief's response to the protests that have happened in the City of Miami. So people were asked from around the country where you were seeing massive unrest that turned violent in places like Detroit and New York, even LA. Why are we as a major city not seeing that same result? We had one car set on fire one of the very first nights. Beyond that, there were minimal arrests happening. And I attribute that to our police chief's policy. What he did was he created what's called RPs, response platoons. And that would be between 10 and 15 police cars and a SWAT vehicle that would be stationed about a quarter mile away from any given protest. And so there was no visible use of force as the protesters were marching. And that would keep the situations from escalating. There would be a minimum presence just to address those protesters and guide them along. But at the snap of a finger, if things got out of hand, that entire response platoon would be available within about 30 seconds. And that happened. They were needed at times, and there was most of the times where they were not needed. But because of that lack of escalation, I think we've had much better luck with peaceful protests. There has been vandalism, there have been situations, but they're more isolated, and it's less of a part of the larger movement. The protest voices that we're hearing are simply seeking change within the governmental system and the policing system. They're for the most part not trying to enact unrest in the moment. They're trying to be heard. And so when they block a street or when they do whatever, they're not trying to cause accidents or fires or whatever. They're trying to be heard. And so our chief has been able to differentiate between when a protest is there to be and when a protest is there to have a constitutionally allowed message. And so for me, that's been very helpful for our business community, and the fear of, boarding up and vandalism and looting. We just haven't seen that here to the same extent.
I'm sorry, Ken, you're breaking up a little bit. If everybody could turn off their cameras, because I think Ken is going through some bandwidth issue there. So go ahead, Ken.
Down to one. You're right. I'm down to one bar here. I apologize.
No worries.
So the last was about hospitality. They are getting hit really bad, even though the policies have opened up. So hotels are allowed to take in guests now. There's just simply nobody coming. And I've talked to several people within the hotel industry. And so it's they are looking to get back to work. Their staffs are looking to get back to work. And hotels actually are a relatively safe place to be for this virus. Whether you're working or whether you're staying, you're pretty well secluded as you want to be in your room. And so that industry is an unfortunate victim of the virus right now, but there's just simply not people traveling as much, and the tourism's down, business travel's down, Zooming is up. And so hospitality is being hit really hard. So I don't know what's going to happen within that industry in the medium to long term.
Russell, it's Mario Nakama. Thank you very much for being with us, and really appreciate the approach you guys are taking as far as balancing the opening of the economy, but in a healthy and safe manner. I see that you're calling us from your car. What is government's position on working at the office? Are you guys currently working remotely? Do you think you'll continue that until a vaccine is found? What is the government's position on that?
We're working as remotely as possible. We started a plan for this back in January, actually. We started ordering PPE. So this was in preparation for Super Bowl. We started monitoring from our emergency operations center the virus as it went across Asia and Europe. And so even as early back as January, we made a contingency plan for how the government would operate if the pandemic hit the United States. We estimated up to 40% of our actual employees could be out of work based on quarantine and or in direct infection, and up to 20% of leadership. And so we created redundancies within our departments so that if a director was out, for example, that we could still function, and those sorts of things. We have had infection numbers in the city. Number 1 is police. Number 2 is fire. Number 3 is our parks department. But we are functioning. And so most of our offices, if you don't have a crucial position where you need to be in the office, we are all working from home as we can. I only go into City Hall twice a month for actual commission meetings. So I'm there with the IT department to actually transmit. And so that there's at least a little bit of gravitas to my presentation with a couple of flags behind me instead of bedposts. But I stay out of City Hall as much as possible.
As a follow-up, how do you see it post-pandemic? Do you think that kind of remote working will continue as a result of seeing how it operates during the pandemic? And
that's a great question. So the biggest change for us has been being allowed to conduct virtual commission meetings, which we were never allowed to by our own charter and by the state statutes as well. We must meet physically in person and have a physical quorum. And those who address us, the public, have to show up at City Hall if they have a grievance, and they get 2 minutes to speak after driving for a half an hour, waiting for 4 hours, and then they get to talk. And so this has opened up so much more opportunity for interaction with our public. And it's been a great thing. If there's any silver lining, our City of Miami Commission meetings go much more quickly on virtually. And the public, we have much more public interaction. So I'm hoping that continues, but right now we're only operating under an emergency order by the governor and an emergency order by the city mayor. And so once that gets finished, the pandemic's over, I'm sure there'll be a look at this, because I think this has been a healthy exercise in virtual operation. And I hope we take the good from it and continue that.
Excellent. Thank you.
So, Ken, one of the key questions that I get asked with some frequency is, Miami is the epicenter, or Dade County is the epicenter of the U.S. now. And when you look at what corporations are doing, which the majority of us work for multinational corporations, the vast majority of us are work at home, don't need to come into the office and all that. What is really driving that spike? And is there anything that you look at from the business community to do to help, get it to plateau first and then obviously to go down?
You'll hear a lot of electeds at different levels right now, blaming where they believe the vectors are, but the truth is we don't actually know for a fact. And so there's a lot of assumption going on. The current assumption is that because we've closed down the bar, restaurant, and entertainment industry, most people are entertaining at homes and house parties, and that has become a large vector. That's a strong assumption. It could very well be true. I've heard these parties, I've seen them. And so if one person is infected there, certainly they could be infecting that party and they could be taking it home. So Fort Lauderdale passed legislation to this effect that they could enforce against house parties. It's a very dicey legal needle to thread from a constitutional perspective on private property, et cetera. But the governments have been found to have the purview to take certain action. So you can't just bust into somebody's house and say, how many people do you have here, or anything like that. But let's say they're throwing a party and violating the noise ordinance. Then officers can go over and based on that, they can enforce if they see too many people there that are not nuclear to the household. Beyond that, we still do believe there is a potential for infection at restaurants, and that's why we're doing outdoor only. Indoor seems to be the big place for potential risk, and so indoor offices, moving them down to 25% is a smart move. And work from home is a smart move, and then outdoor only restaurant dining is a smart move. So I think I'm very comfortable with all the steps that have been taken and the policies that have been put in place. They should be, parks are not our issue. People being out in the outdoors, it stresses me to see like 30, 40 people in a park with no mask on because they're simply not following the ordinance. But I don't believe that's where the vector of transmission is happening, in an open air breeze with people who are like 10, 15 feet apart with no mask on. I'm not terribly concerned about that. Gyms, however, we're watching that one carefully. We've reopened gyms, or at least the county has, and they have mask requirements and stuff. But if you go to a gym, you'll see it and you'll feel it. You'll be a little nervous if you've been, self-quarantining yourself for the last few months. If you go to a gym, it feels awfully exposed. So we're watching that vector, and as we get people coming in with infections and whatever tracing we can do, we're trying to see if they are a vector or not at this point under the certain policies. So don't let anyone tell you they know exactly what it is. Nobody truly knows, because the tracing simply isn't happening yet.
Great. So open it up for one last question if anyone has one.
Yeah, actually, I do. Ken, this is John Labus. You mentioned about the contact tracing that might happen as a result of the gyms opening. Is this something that's actually happening in a coordinated way across the county? Are they going to be? Are there rules around opening these gyms that includes
for that? Yes.
Contact tracing.
No. So the policy on gyms is very strict in terms of how they operate, but the contact tracing is not, and that's just a capacity issue. The county mayor had not enacted the contact tracing to the extent that he should have. And he was blaming the state government. The state government was blaming him. And I think they've gotten it together at this point. A couple weeks ago, they really had it out. And so the state government is providing the resources. The county government is enacting it. They're getting more and more tracers all the time. But it doesn't happen at the business level. It's happening at the hospital level. So if you become infected, then they start interviewing you, that kind of thing. Where have you been? Who have you been in contact with? And they track you backward. But I wear a second hat beyond city commissioner. I'm also the chairman of the Coconut Grove Business Improvement District. And if you can picture downtown Coconut Grove, it's about 30 restaurants and about 50 businesses, retail and office and things like that in that little area. So just before I got on this call, we voted to run a pilot tracing program in our bid. And we were approached by a new company out of California that's doing a pilot program with us. So we'll be enacting a 4-month pilot program for tracing at the business level. And so as a customer goes into a business, there's a large sign with a QR code, and that customer can opt in to scan the QR code, and all it traces of their information is their phone number. That's it. It doesn't take their personal information, their health data, or anything else like that. But then as they go to different restaurants, all they do is scan the code as they walk in, and it's on a voluntary basis. So that if and when they become infected, they can go back and trace their own steps from a retail perspective. And we can notify those restaurants on an anonymous basis that someone who was infected was in your restaurant at X period of time. So you can know who the hostess was, who their waiter was, that kind of thing, so that they can take the steps without getting too invasive on the person's private and without creating a mandatory situation. We think this may be the future of tracing at a business level. So we're conducting that. I introduced that just now, and we voted it up about 20 minutes ago. So we'll be rolling that out in the coming month for the next 4 months. And so that may be a way business can take this into their own hands. So that's something we're trying.
That was amazing. Thank you very much, Ken. We probably took more time from your busy schedule than we should have, but this was extremely helpful. And on behalf of the entire board, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. So I'll leave you with just please stay in touch. You can find me on LinkedIn, Ken Russell, and you can find me on all the social medias, Ken Russell Miami. So if you look up from YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Ken Russell Miami, where I post a lot of the updates. I also have a bi-monthly newsletter that talks about what legislation's passing at the city of Miami. And so Danny in my office can get anyone signed up for that who wants. So I have to sign off, everyone. So thank you so much. I really appreciate all you're doing for the business community. So good luck to all of you.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
Good afternoon.
So now that we've had a great overview from Commissioner Ken Russell, kind of wanted to open it up to folks to talk a little bit about what your companies are doing or and how they're reacting to the pandemic, just to share what the practices are, and maybe we can find some common grounds or find some best practices that we weren't aware of. So I'm just going to kind of open it up to a roundtable discussion and look for a volunteer to be the first.
Can you guys hear me okay? Because I'm happy to go first.
Hi,
We are,
Elizabeth. You can go
Elizabeth.
first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So my company is considered an essential business. So we've been having a heavier amount of people in the office than perhaps you folks. We have right now in the headquarters as much as 50% of our workforce in the office. So we've been doing a bunch of enhanced cleaning and other types of things. So if any of you have questions about that, what we've been doing and stuff, I'm happy to be a resource for that.
Remind us what your company is, Elizabeth.
Multidisciplinary engineering firm.
Wonderful.
Great.
So as you get
Anybody
ready
else?
to,
Okay.
as you're ready to start bringing people back into the office, we can talk about what we've been doing and stuff, because it's hard. It's hard to get folks to start coming back. And we had everybody, we were up to about 80, 90%, and now we've dropped back down.
Maybe I'll continue, Miles. It's Mario with Oracle.
Yeah, Mario, go ahead.
Thank you. At first, when the pandemic hit, we were very reactive, and we were scrambling to try to get our folks in line, getting that information as it was coming to us, trying to develop a plan. And that was back in late February when we started this action. Now we're at the stage of trying to plan for the post-pandemic world. At Oracle, we're taking more of a conservative approach. The corporation has mandated for all folks to work from home, in that we seem to be using our technology. We're eating our own dog food and being able to be productive and getting results. We're definitely looking to get back to the office at some point, but our corporation, our management is not in a rush to do so. Once we do get back to that reopening, we feel that we're probably going to be looking at a different way of working or introducing different models to our folks. Just because now they've had the opportunity to see how the remote working model can be successful. We're probably going to adopt a hybrid model where we're going to have more open seating and having people come in and sit where they have a space available and be more transitory or mobile, and really just focus on having client areas or front of the house areas where we develop for the client who does want to come and have presentations in person. Because we're still not sure the clients are going to want to come to offices after the pandemic has been resolved, which we feel is going to be when the vaccine is found. We're currently, again, looking at all our portfolio. We're trying to right size it for that focus. And again, we're hopeful that we'll able to be back by the end of the year, but it's looking more and more like it's going to be pushed out to the first quarter, second quarter of next year, just because of the development and what we're hearing in that Oracle's involved a lot in a lot of this testing and have helped with the database with a lot of these pharmaceuticals to do some of this tracing and also monitor the results of some of the experiments that we hope, again, that will be sooner, but it looks like it's going to be later. So we're planning for a post-pandemic world where we're going to be a lot more transitory, a lot more flexible. We'll probably not have as large a requirement of office environment or space. And what we do have will be more of an open model where we'll have specific areas just for the clients and then open area for our personnel who do come into the office. That's the way it is for us.
Thank you. It's Francisco here with
Mario,
DHL. I can go next.
Hey, Francisco. Yeah, please.
Hey. Yeah, so we are also considered business critical in our operations. So all operations remain open, and we have actually we're seeing high volumes in our operations, especially the ones that are related to e-commerce. Regarding the office, we basically have 3 offices here in South Florida, one in Doral, one in Weston, and those 2, I don't have a lot of information. But the one that I'm based in is in Plantation. And the office is open since mid-June in a completely volunteer base, so you don't need to go there. We are seeing around 10% of regular or full capacity. And they did implement a couple measures, safety measures, including ways of circulation, including temperature screening when you're getting the building. And of course, it's mandatory to wear masks all the time and sanitize your hands when you're getting or get out any space. So this is basically the current scenario at DHL.
Great, thank you, Francisco. Juan Jose, as I mentioned to you earlier, I'm going to have to cut out a little bit earlier, but before I did, I just wanted to share a little bit about what JLL is doing at a couple of different levels. One, we manage a lot of office properties around the world and have been intimately involved in helping our clients put into action policies and procedures to help minimize the coronavirus. So when you come to a JLL managed building, you will clearly see a way of circulating through that building. So there's usually one door dedicated to coming into the building, a separate door dedicated to exiting the building. Wherever it's possible, there are different circulation routes that do not bump into each other for accessing the elevators. And in the specific case of where our offices are in downtown Miami, we're in the Southeast Financial Building, which is 55 stories. It has 5 elevator banks, and there is one way into that building, and there's two ways into the building and 2 ways out of the building. Again, really trying to minimize the contact. The circulation to the elevator banks and then out of the elevator banks has been done in such a way to avoid people coming into contact face to face. The elevators, which have capacity of 10 to 12, up to 14 people, are now down to 3 people in order to assure the right social distancing. As you now get to our office space, we have 3 entry points or exit points into our office. So we have one specifically dedicated to entry, and then 2 other ones that are specifically dedicated to leaving the office space. Again, really trying to minimize the face-to-face bumping into people. The other key factor is our current occupancy, allowable occupancy, is 25%. And so you'll see workstations which have been deemed as non-usable. And most of our offices are deemed usable, but they only allow for 1 person. So there's really no collaboration going on. All of our conference rooms have been made to a maximum of about 25% capacity. So what used to be an 8-person conference room is now down to a 2-person conference room. The other thing that we had was quite an area for snacks and beverages, and that's really been reduced to basically coffee, which is a single-serve coffee maker with hand sanitizer. So you have to sanitize before and after you use the coffee maker, and water has all been moved to bottled water only. So a little counterintuitive as we think about becoming more green and more environmentally friendly, but obviously right now the prioritization is on the healthcare. Like Francisco mentioned, we're really down to about 15 to 20% of people coming in, and it was completely voluntary on who was asked to come back. So that's a little bit about JLL. Again, thank you all very much for this call. I'm going to hand it over to Juan Jose, who will take it to the rest of the way.
Well, thank you very much for bringing Ken and for moderating, Miles. That was amazing. And have a good meeting and arrive safe. So we really have only 5-6 minutes left. I just wanted to thank everyone. David, Ignacio. Ignacio is actually a new member for the Southeast Florida chapter. He's based actually in Chile, but had the California chapter as his sub-chapter, and he just moved it. So just wanted to welcome him. And Elizabeth and Deborah, thank you very much for participating, and as usual, Maureen and all of the board. As I mentioned, I have recorded this, and I'm going to share it with our other members, and I think this was a very useful exercise. Anyone else want to have a closing comment or remark?
I just thought, Juan, Mario, I just thought.
Go ahead.
Government, I think he's very well thought out, explains it, and as Maureen's indicated, has a very soft, calming manner about him. I was very much impressed by him.
Yeah, so was I.
No fake news there.
Yeah, he came across really transparent, so that was really, truly appreciated.
Yeah. I think we should write him in on the ballot, if you know what I'm saying.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you very much for your time. And I guess we'll close it for the day, and we'll circulate the recording.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Stay safe and stay well.